Carina Saunders had a promising future with endless possibilities, but Carina got lost in a dark world. Although she tried to free herself from the webs of drugs, those webs led her to her death. Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel where we talk about real crimes and real people. This is the unsolved murder of Carina Saunders. Unsolved or intimidation? Want to know what happened? Let's get started. Young Carina was born on July 17, 1992. Her parents were Margie Queen and Richard Saunders. She was raised and lived in Mustang, Oklahoma. She had 8 siblings. The people who knew her described her as beautiful, bright, funny. She had a goofy sense of humor. She was always full of smiles and joy. Carina attended Mustang High School. She excelled in academia. She wanted to be a professional opera singer or an accountant. Carina loved to sing. In 2010, Carina graduated from high school early, and she also moved out of her parents' home. What seemed like the beginning of a bright journey. In fact, Carina started to derail. For reasons unknown, Carina started using drugs. It became so severe that in the summer of 2011, she went to rehab. After leaving rehab, she stayed with her cousin Catherine. Catherine was the last person to see Carina alive. Carina didn't have a phone, so her family only knew about her whereabouts on Facebook, and on September 18, 2011, Carina made her last post on Facebook. Despite Carina's efforts to distance herself from illegal narcotics, the underground swallowed up Carina. The last day Catherine saw Carina, Carina asked her for her ride to meet up with someone. So they headed to Taco Bell. Carina was wearing a plain white muscle shirt with a plain gray Victoria's Secret sweatpants. Catherine and Carina said their goodbyes, and Carina got into a Chevrolet Blazer. On October 9, 2011, Catherine received a disturbing message that would send chills up and down anyone's spine. "I'm going to bury you next to Carina." Who did this? Who was this person? Better yet, what did they do to Carina? Was Catherine next? Catherine showed the text to Carina's mother, so Margie, on October 10th, reported Carina missing. She put up flyers around their hometown and surrounding areas. Margie also found out Carina had been out of contact with many of her friends and family for the last month, and Carina hadn't been on social media for a week. Catherine went to the police and showed them the threatening text. So the police investigated and found out who had sent it: Kyle Savage. Kyle was a friend of Carina's, and he also had hopes to becoming more than friends. Kyle felt threatened by Catherine, whom he thought Carina was having a liaison. Kyle told authorities he would never hurt Carina and that the text was poorly timed. Catherine was just a competitor he wanted to scare off. But what happened to Carina? Where was she? October 13th, 2011, Bethany, Oklahoma. An animal rescue group was setting traps for feral cats in a wooded area behind a Homeland grocery store. They found a Nike duffel bag and a laundry bag. Both of them had a foul smell. It was putrid. It was unforgettable. They called the police. The smell was suspicious. It was like many said. It smelled like death. When the police arrived, they opened the bags and found a gruesome scenario. In it were body parts wrapped with plastic wrap. The hands and feet were missing. The head and neck were in the small bag, the rest of the body in the large bag. What a cruel destiny this human being faced. Who was this Jane Doe? Autopsy results showed the hands, feet, a portion of her forearms, left breast, and clothing were missing. The woman had contusions on her right cheek and back of the shoulders. She had what it seemed duct tape had been wrapped around her thighs. Her hair was cut short. Whoever had done this horrific crime also tried to remove a tattoo on the upper back of Jane Doe. Analysis showed she had tramadol in her system. Was she a drug addict? Or was she drugged when she was tortured? The cause of death of Jane Doe? violent death, manner of death, homicide. Jane Doe was murdered. The police, being aware of the disappearance of Carina Saunders, they asked her mother for her dental records. Then on October 17th, the police broke the news. Jane Doe was in fact Carina Saunders. So for authorities, this was the beginning of unraveling the puzzle of Carina's death, who killed her and why. Authorities believe Carina was still alive on October 2011. She was last seen on CCTV footage outside Newcastle Casino and Gaming Center. She was talking with a man with tattoos on his arms in a red Ford. There was also a second vehicle with female passengers inside. It appeared as they were trying to convince Carina not to enter the truck, but Carina still did it. However, authorities weren't able to identify anyone from the footage. It was a dead end. So authorities interviewed potential suspects who had seen Carina on the last days of her life. The police, knowing Carina had been with Catherine and that Carina had an encounter with a much older male, they focused on him. The man was Kenny Richards. He was the owner of the Chevrolet Blazer Catherine saw Carina get into the last time she saw her. Carina had mentioned him to friends and family, and she told them they were friends and that he wanted to make her an amateur porn star. But some believed Kenny was actually a pimp involved in sex trafficking. Kenny was domineering and aggressive. The police learned he had asked Carina to hang out before she disappeared. Authorities talked to Kenny, and Kenny stated the two hung out. Then he dropped Carina off at an apartment complex in Bethany, Studio 44 Apartments. After that, he never saw her again. While at the apartment complex, Carina met someone from school, a man named Keegan. Keegan, who lived at the apartment complex, said he saw Carina sweeping debris off a staircase and he recognized her. He greeted Carina and the two started catching up. Carina told him she had been staying at the apartment complex with the building's handyman and his son, so she would help around as a means to pay rent. The next time Keegan saw Carina, she told him she hadn't eaten in a few days, so he bought her something to eat. He also noticed Carina had a tiny bag with all of her belongings, so he gifted her a green duffel bag. His fear? He was afraid Carina's remains had been found inside the duffel bag he had given her. It wasn't. Keegan saw Carina in another occasion, and that was it. Police were convinced Keegan wasn't the person who had killed Carina. Instead, they realized Carina's life was nothing her family and friends expected to be. All of the potential was overshadowed by tragic circumstances. Whatever was happening to Carina, it was taking over her. Another individual became a suspect, Cody Perez. Cody was friends with Carina. He went to culinary school and he worked at the Olive Garden. At the time of Carina's disappearance, he sold his knife collection to a pawn shop and left town. October 21st, Cody contacted the police to explain why he left. He moved away because he had a dispute with another man. They found the knives he had sold and tested for blood, but there were no traces of blood in it. Despite all the information gathered, authorities couldn't get to a conclusion as to who killed Carina and bring them to justice. But a year later, there was a light at the end of the tunnel. A witness came forward. She told police she had witnessed Jamie Masser and Louise Ruiz torture Carina to death as a "what will happen to you if you don't abide by our rules." Jamie and Louise were involved in drug trading and in sex trafficking. The woman said she saw the two men strap Carina to a table. They cut off Carina's left foot with a hacksaw, and then they tried to cut off the other foot, but the hacksaw broke. The woman managed to jump out of a window and run away. Another witness came forward and she told authorities she was spending time with a man named Luis. She went through his phone and she saw a video of Carina. She recognized Carina because she had crossed paths with her multiple times. She had been a watcher. She would watch Carina so she wouldn't do anything dangerous while intoxicated. She kept watching the video until Carina started screaming. screaming. She saw Louise cutting Carina's foot off at a drug and sex den located at 3500 St. Harvey Street. The police concluded Carina had been murdered on October 11, 2011 at said location. In July 2012, Jimmy Masser and Louise Reese were arrested. They were charged with the first-degree murder, and rumors started that there was a sex trafficking ring in town linked to a Mexican cartel. But the case derailed. The witness who said she had seen the video said she had learned about it through her friend. So in February 2013, the case was dismissed without prejudice due to lack of evidence. Louise was set free, but Jimmy was held on unrelated drug charges. The case was handed to the FBI. The Bethany Police Department was involved in a scandal in what it seemed a case of corruption inside the force. The captain was let go due to evidence gone missing. He was charged with larceny of a controlled substance. The charges were dismissed and he was reinstated. Another officer was under investigation and he was let go, but later reinstated as well. Louise Reese took advantage of the situation and he filed a lawsuit and he won $50,000. Carina's case seemed hopeless and it seemed the answer everybody wanted was far from being discovered. But in 2016, a new team to investigate was formed. A reward was offered for information, and they decided to investigate the last person who had seen Carina, Kenny Richards. Kenny, by this time, had been linked to another woman's death, but he was never charged. In January 2013, someone told the police Kenny had killed Carina and that her missing personal items could be found buried on his property inside a metal tank. But back then, the police didn't follow this tip. In 2016, Kenny was arrested on drug-related charges. His phone was confiscated by the DEA. In April 2017, authorities searched his property. They found a septic tank with a woman's shirt, jacket, and a pair of sandals buried. They didn't find a phone or a vehicle. The video was supposed to be in it. Kenny gave permission to search his phone, and in it they found a photo of Carina. Its content was never revealed. In 2018, someone offered $50,000 for the video and $30,000 for the identity of the killer. It was also created a deck of cards with pictures of victims in it, and they were distributed in jail in the hope someone would recognize any of the victims. But no one came forward for the money. In 2020, the police released a sketch of a person they believe had been involved with Carina at the casino. 12 years later, 2023, Carina's case is still unsolved. But what really happened? Was the case botched by the police? Who killed Carina? Kenny, Louise, Jimmy? Do the details given about these suspects make you believe one of them actually killed her? What's your choice? Who do you think did it?